Hello and welcome to ASIP Youth Insights, proudly brought to you by Import Export TV and the ASEAN Australian Strategic Youth Partnership. My name is Sophia Fuller and I will be your host today. In today's episode, we ask the questions: are international students making the most out of their time in Australia? And could we be doing more to help them prepare for the unexpected things that can come up when you're in another country and navigating different cultures? We start off by talking to a panel of 4 students, 2 from the ASEAN region and 2 from Australia, that give us a bit of an insight into their experiences of studying abroad. Following this, we talk to our Intercultural Learning Specialists who take us through the importance of preparation and debriefing for students that have studied abroad. They even run us through an excellent exercise that you can do at home that will help improve your intercultural competence and give you some insights that you can then relate back to your everyday experiences. So if you're excited as I am, come and join me now as we chat to this excellent panel of guests. Hello and a big welcome to our panel of international students and our Intercultural Learning Specialists Fran and Marcela from Value Learning, who are joining us today for this episode of ASIP Youth Insights. To start off this episode, I would love to go around our panel of international students and have a chat with Maria, Fraser, Nick and Eddie and talk to them about their experiences of travelling to other countries and going through their educational programs or mobility programs and how it was for them navigating across different cultures. Let's start with Maria Kalista, our Indonesian student currently studying in Melbourne. Over to you, Maria.
So I've actually found it kind of hard to think of anything bad about being an international student in Melbourne, especially just because there's so many international students here and it's just kind of a norm. And I feel like everywhere I go, I live at International House College. So I'm interacting with international students every single day. And there's a community here. I think that's really important as well, is to have people that are international around you, just so you kind of have people who know what being a third culture kid, I'll say, is like. Because when you grow up abroad and come somewhere like Australia, it's important to just have like-minded people who understand you. So living at International House has brought me this, and I'm so grateful for that. I'd say probably one of the only bad things would be getting proper employment that's not really dodgy, because I know that I started working as a waitress and I worked in Ligon, which is notorious for paying in cash. And I didn't really know that, and I was just took the job, and I realized I was getting underpaid by like $6 an hour. I barely had any experience because where I'm from, you're not allowed to work if you're under 18. So all I had was an RSA, and I just took the job because I felt lucky to have it, but I was being underpaid. I was working really late shifts and walking home late at night, and this just felt a bit dangerous. And so I decided to quit, and I haven't really found anything since that will accept me with my lack of experience. So this is probably the only thing that I'd say was a little bit tough.
Is there anything, Maria, maybe you can highlight something that you've absolutely loved about your experience?
Yeah, sure. Coming from a small island, there's just been, you can only grow to a certain extent, especially living there for 18 years. There's only a certain number of people that you can kind of meet every day, and it's just a bit of limited opportunities. And then once I got to Melbourne, it was just like, whoa, big city. So many things became possible, and everything was just bigger and better, and it was just, yeah, it was definitely a dream come true. So I've loved the amount of people I've met, the growth that I've been through, even just being independent as well, has taught me so much. And yeah, so I really cherish the past 2 years for the amount of growth I've been put through.
Thank you so much, Maria. I'm really glad you did have some positive takeaways from your time here in Australia as well. Moving on, let's chat to Nick, our student from Cambodia, currently also studying in Melbourne. Over to you. What's been going on with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly of studying in Australia and navigating different cultures?
I think there is something that most of the international students who started in 2020 face, this pandemic. It's brought a lot of surprises to us. In particular, for my case, I would say that we are facing the issue of the online classroom because, before coming here, we would expect it something more like coming to Australia. We want to experience the on-campus where you can, go to the library, with friends from other country, hanging out after class and attend various networking events to maximize our international studying experience. But in contrast, like I have been here only for like 1 year and a half. And I would say that I spend most of my time in my room staring at my laptop and my phone. And, it's something that I did not expect that. But I would say that it's not something that uncommon here because it's just like not only me, all the international students, not only in Australia but in other countries as well. We are having a very hard time adjusting to that. And in particular, one very bad experience for this online class, especially during the online exam. It's just like my first online exam. It was like 2 hours and 15 minutes, but that in the previous setting where you sit in the hall 2 hours and 15 minutes, you can spend the whole 2 hours and 15 minutes to complete your exam. But since it's set to the like the online exam, and you were given the same 2 hours and 15 minutes, but you could then use up all the 2 hours and 15 minutes because after you finish, you have to take the photo, convert it to PDF, and then you have to upload it. So it took around like 15 minutes already, which means that the same exam, but you were given less time to complete it. So, I found it very hard and I did not do well on that particular exam. That is one of the worst experience because I have always, score very high in my exam, but that one exam I scored, not too bad, but it's just like not what I expected from the exam as well.
Yeah, of course. Were you given any preparation or any help, or have you been given opportunities to meet other Australian and international students in online settings?
At that time, because it was the first time that it transitioned, from to online class. So I would say that maybe because it's first time, no experience, and also the preparation, I could say that it was very bad. And since I came to Melbourne, I attended the on-campus class for only 1 or 2 classes, and that is why I found it's very hard to make friends because if you could actually go to campus, you can meet with people. It's easier to make friends and to discuss about the lesson. But since it moved online, so we just log in and then watch the lecture online, and after we finish, we just log out. So we did not get the chance or time in order to interact with one another, to clarify about the lesson or to discuss or to make friends at all. So this is very difficult for us. But as time passed from the first semester until now, so I think that I could see some improvement in the online setting where the university is trying harder and harder, to consider about the student experience by providing longer time, and also during the teaching, they also try to make like a breakout room where they just set students into certain virtual room where we can discuss and talk to one another. But I would say that the first time that it was shipped to the online or virtual teaching, there was no such thing at all. So very, very difficult for us to interact with one another and also to utilize our full studying experience.
Thank you for sharing, Nick. I'd love to talk now to Eddie. Eddie has done a few mobility programs overseas, but what I really want to know about is your work with ASEAN students in Australia and a little bit more about what you've been doing there.
Thanks, Sophia. So I'm currently studying at Monash University in Melbourne, and I want to actually tell you a little bit of a story of one of the things that I encountered last year at Monash University. I thought it was really like a mind-opening sort of experience. So last year I was focusing on, in my degree, cultural competence, which is very much along, this sort of topic. And we'd often do these exercises about learning about different cultures and countries, and with many different international students. And it sort of allowed me to, make friends with international students, particularly from ASEAN countries. And so it was sort of like a platform to really meet with international students and understand what it means to be an international student coming to Australia. And one of the exercises we focused on, there was one part of it when we were focusing on this Malay family who had immigrated to Canada. And it talked about how some people, when they move to a different country, they move with their parents, or some people move by themselves. And there's this sort of internal battle of having to work with your own culture from your own country and having to work with the new culture that's starting to influence you whilst you're there. And it was sort of, we had to sort of break down that sort of inner struggle of an identity sort of thing. And I really sort of, felt that, because when I was overseas, like when you're so part of so many different cultures, not only can they influence you, but you feel like, well, this can maybe, shape my identity a little bit more. Maybe I really love this aspect of this culture, or whatever it is. And yeah, when I guess you're exposed to those sort of things, it can really make you think in a different sort of way. I also do a lot of, interfaith work with different cultures. And I think there's definitely an opportunity for, Australian students and as well as ASEAN students to involve yourself with each other, particularly in the ASEAN Australian Strategic Youth Partnerships. One of, in ASIP, what we do is we try and, bridge those gaps between ASEAN students and, Australian students, looking at some of the commonalities and some of the overlaps that work well with different students, especially students coming to Australia, but also Australian students going to ASEAN. And I think one of the main sort of things that really highlights your question is last year, ASIP sort of spearheaded this amazing inaugural project, the Indo-Pacific Student Mobility Youth Dialogue, which really focused on this sort of area that's been really missing for international students during COVID, where all exchange programs and student mobility programs, that is really part of an element of young people in ASEAN and Australian countries to understand different cultures, has really been lost, because we can't go to different countries and immerse ourselves in different languages and things like that. And it's all being done virtual. And I think one of this sort of project, really, to me, it really highlighted, one of the things that we forget is when students, the actual student experience after, once someone from ASEAN comes to Australia, or vice versa, or whatever it is, when they're actually abroad, is there a follow-up that, the university is taking to ensure that their experience is really, an experience that they can enjoy. And especially when they return, that's like one of the things that ASIP really wanted to spearhead. And we thought it was this gap in the international student experience. And yeah, it was important to really bring, some of these things to light, especially empowering, international students who really spearheaded this actual report in the first place. And yeah, and just in terms of like at actual university, I've really found it really amazing how, when on campuses, international students are empowered to, take roles in universities and clubs, and whether it's in the student associations and the guilds, to really make sure that, campuses and universities is a really welcoming place and embracing place, and really welcoming of different cultures, and that it's a place to meet each other and to learn from people's different experiences and things like that, especially when we don't have the ability to do so many student mobility and exchange programs. The people who did stay, or the people that are still on campus, like, I think, yeah, it's a really great opportunity to still meet with them and engage with them, to really broaden your horizons and to welcome them as well, to whether it's in ASEAN or whether it's in Australia. So yeah.
Thank you. Next we have Fraser. So Fraser, I understand you have done a little bit in Indonesia, but then fell in love with Thailand, didn't you?
Yes. So I was lucky enough before COVID came in full force to be able to spend 9 months in Thailand. So I was on a New Colombo Plan scholarship, which basically provides funding to students from Australia to go study in the Indo-Pacific region, and Thailand was my particular location. So in terms of my bad and the ugly story, mine might take a bit of a different tack, but it's one that definitely stuck with me, and I think provides some kind of analogy to my time in Thailand, things being a bit unexpected. So I'd been in Thailand for a month before my university program started, because I'd been doing language training for a month. So I'd sort of settled in a bit. My Thai buddy from my university had kindly helped me find an apartment to live in, and I was feeling kind of on top of things and thinking everything was going to plan so far. And the night before term was meant to start and we're going to have an induction ceremony for all the international students in the morning, I went to another international student's house to meet some other people. And walking back from their apartment to my apartment, I was unfortunate enough to encounter a dog that came out of one of the soy alleyways, and it bit me on the leg. So I went back to my apartment, went to sleep, woke up the next day, figured I should probably actually get it checked out. So I went to the hospital and arrived 30 minutes late to the induction ceremony. Now, it was a bit of a talking point, and I was a bit of a laughing stock of the international students and also the local Thai students, who found it quite amusing. But it was a good sort of icebreaker, letting me sort of start conversations with a lot of people with something to go from. And I feel it was a bit of an introduction to how I should have expected the rest of my exchange to go, in that you couldn't really expect what would happen. And just when you thought you're on top of things, something might come out of the blue and change things for you a bit. So I think that's my good, the bad, the ugly story. The dog was a bit ugly. The experience was rather bad at the time, but it was good because it opened up a lot of connections and things to talk to people about.
Thank you so much, Fraser. That is an amazing story, and one that you definitely won't forget anytime soon. So before we move on, we are going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and then we will be joined by Intercultural Learning Specialists Fran and Marcela from Value Learning. See you shortly.
Hi everyone. International trade and global business has never been more challenging. Over the last 12 to 24 months, we've had challenges from every direction, whether it's a Suez Canal blockage, port disruptions, congestion, container shortages. We've even had a pandemic to deal with. How do you navigate an international trade business or global supply chain without staying up to date? Join us at importexporttv.com. We've got industry experts from every aspect of supply chain and every market. We can help you navigate through these challenging times. We look forward to helping you grow your business faster and smarter on importexporttv.com.
Okay, we just heard from our 4 panelists of international and domestic students, and now we are going to hear from Fran and Marcela from Value Learning. They're our intercultural learning specialists for this episode, and we want to cross to them now and just ask a few questions around the importance of preparation, of intercultural preparation for students traveling to another country. If you'd like to share your opinions on that.
Am I going first, Fran? Yes. Yes, look, we always like to think, and I want to say, Eddie, that the report that AC put out there about student mobility was amazing, and it showed some of the issues that we have when preparing students for international experiences, because the main issue is not only about preparation. So this, it has to have a holistic approach. The experience is before you go to the other country, during the time you're in the other country, and after. So the preparation is important, and usually, and you saw that in that report, that there is a lot of focus on preparation, but the focus is in logistics, a lot of do's and don'ts, a lot of how to open a bank account, a lot of information that you need to survive, right? But not much about intercultural skills that you need to navigate that different environment. And you say, well, you end up thinking, oh, that'll be okay. Well, it might not be okay, right? And you need some skills to navigate for when things don't go okay. And then during the program, it's super important to have that support to help you reflect on what's happening, to help you make sense of what's going on every day. Because I'm looking at the four of you who are having or have had an international experience, how sometimes it can be confusing or awkward or frustrating. And you just go home thinking, I don't know what that was, or what happened there, did I do the right thing or not? So you need someone to guide you in during those moments and help you, gain skills and understanding when those things happen. And for sure the after, once you're back and you're back in familiar territory, back feeling kind of yourself, and you need to make sense of what happened. You need to make sense of your experience, like take stock of what you learned and on the experience you went through. So it cannot be only focused on preparation. It's all throughout the journey of an international student. And that's what a lot of times we see missing in some of these programs, and we could see in that report.
I think it's also worth noting that it's still possible to have a successful study abroad experience. And so you can go abroad, have a fantastic time, really, continue to learn in whatever the subject matter is that you're studying. But the benefit of really building that intercultural competence is that you maximize the experience. So you can actually learn much more. And the other thing that can happen is that you can return home and back into life, whatever that looks like, whether that remains a life of, in a global environment, or whether you move again, and those skills are going to come with you. So, you're going to maximize the ability to interact in our global world more effectively. You're going to be able to have a stronger network and build both personal and interpersonal skills in a way that you may not be able to maximize without that additional support. So when we talk about those moments during the experience, it can be as simple as a question posed to you on a regular basis about, what are some of those situations that you've encountered that you haven't been really sure about? What do you think they mean? What else could they mean? So there's really a lot that can help you, not just during that experience abroad, but well beyond those years, that can become part of that skill set that's going to equip you very well for the future.
Amazing. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into the experiences of our panelists here. So Marcela, do you want to dive into any questions that you have for our international students?
I just want to hear from any of them, whoever wants to share. What were or are the biggest challenges that you face when interacting with a different culture and forming relationships in that different culture, right? Either for Maria and Nick here in Australia, or for Eddie and Fraser when they were away. I would love to hear that.
I'm trying to think about the situation, because it's just like it would be better if I got a chance to communicate, so that there are some sort of like intercultural gap where I could find. But mostly since I arrived here, I was here like 1.5 years ago, and so far mostly just spend time in my room, so I did not get enough time to talk and interact with the Australian. But I would say that even before I came here, I have done a lot of preparation, and since I'm here on my scholarship, the scholarship coordinator, they have let's just say prepare us to face the studying in Australia, where they not only share about what you expected to do and not do in Australia, and they also invited like our senior who was in Australia before, to share about the real experience there. So I would say that I have done a lot of preparation before coming here, so I did not find so much trouble fitting in the Australian society. And maybe because I have years of experience working with other people as well, because I've been working for 6 years at one of the international firm where I interacted with people from different backgrounds as well. So I expected that we would have different thinking, but make sure that you keep your mind open so that you can interact with them freely, which means that if you are not sure about something, please don't rush to assume that they are thinking the same way as you think, because that is your culture, that's how you think, but they might think differently because they were stressed up in a different culture. So make sure that if you are not sure about something, please ask them what would they feel about that, and yes, be open-minded and then kindly share. Yeah, that's what I would share for my experience here. Yeah.
Fantastic. And that's what Eddie was saying as well, right? Like more understanding and less assuming. So that's fantastic.
Sure.
I can definitely also like relate to that. Like when things were difficult, like I didn't know where I was going or something, like, you know, people just like, they want to help you around. And I guess it can be really, especially if you don't speak like the language there, it can be, you can be really nervous to ask, like, can you help me? Or like, where do I find this? Or like, am I doing this wrong? Or like, I think people just they want to help you as much as possible. Can be daunting, I think, to ask people if you're doing something right or doing something wrong. Like you're focusing on so many things. Like you don't want to. I remember I didn't want to embarrass myself asking in the wrong language, because, like, I don't know. When I was always an international student, like I never really when I was like using my language, like I didn't want to embarrass myself, and like I didn't want to use English. Like I wanted to use the language as much as possible, because when I would use English, like I didn't want to become an English conversation. I wanted to use the language I was trying to improve, and so like I had all that going on in my head, and then but eventually like you just try your best, and like they help you in the end, because you know people want the best for you, and like what they want to show your culture, and people are proud of their culture. So yeah, I just remember it was like really, you know, like that conflict of, I don't want to embarrass myself using the wrong language, but I also don't want to speak English. I'm just going to try my best.
That's true. Sometimes you don't have to be afraid of looking stupid, because you are among your friends, so you can be open up about it. And sometimes you just hold it, you don't open up to others, so it's hard for others to help you. But if you try to open up, and yeah, maybe sometimes you look stupid, but they could feel it, the genuine concern in you, that you want to learn or you want to interact with them. They can feel it. So in exchange for that, they would want to help you, and they would want to share with anything that could help you got through to the next. So I think it's about opening up and talk about how you feel instead of just closing it. So people would feel it if you really genuine want to interact with them, and of course they would want to interact with you, want to understand about you, want to get to know about you, and most importantly want to help you to go through with them as well. Yeah.
Which is really interesting, Nick, because what you've just highlighted are a number of key intercultural competences. So one is empathy. And, you'll often find, especially amongst a cohort of international students or those that have been in the past, especially the kinds of people you'll find in ACIP, is they recognise what it's like to be in a new environment and not 100% certain of what's happening around you or what things mean. So empathy is really important. And the other thing is that people want to find out about each other and to learn more, and that's that sense of curiosity, which is also really important. And then an openness to be open to different ideas and different ways of being or different worldviews. So what you've really highlighted is some really core competences that are going to be essential for life in general, and certainly great when you are working in that in any kind of intercultural, cross-cultural space where people are different, whether that's different by nationality or other characteristics that makes them culturally different. Sounds like you're doing well.
Yeah, thank you.
I just need to get out of that room.
Yes, we need to get you out of there, Nick. I think, Maria, were you going to say anything? I think you unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes. To touch on a challenge that I've found, Indonesia is a very collectivist culture, and the expectation especially in Bali, everyone's just so nice to each other and so welcoming. And you enter someone's home that you've never even met, and they're like, eat here, have my food, and they're just so friendly and kind. And then coming to Australia, I just found, well, I'm not surprised that Australia ranks high on the individualist scale. I think it's about 90 or something. And I found it to be, you know, I'd ask someone for the time on the street, and sometimes I'd get lucky and people, especially in Melbourne, would be really understanding and take their time to answer, or not just the time, but like for directions, let's say, because navigating public transport is another challenge. I'd ask for directions, and then I'd have someone who'd be really friendly, or someone who would just give me a really blunt answer and walk past me. And I guess it was just hard because I like to have conversations and just randomly approach someone on the street and just ask them a question, and then just say, oh, so where are you from? Or, you know, what's kind of your story, and just dive in. And some people I found were like a bit weirded out by that. So I guess it was just a bit of a culture shock. And another thing actually would probably be, I haven't been able to go home yet since I've moved to Australia, but I'm anticipating the reverse culture shock of getting back home and it just being such a different environment where I just, oh my gosh, just to think about what will happen getting back, hopping, you know, the lack of rules and laws, and just the difference in the systems, the difference in the cultural expectations, the language, how you interact with people. I'm looking forward to it and excited and scared all at once.
I love it that you know about collectivism and individualism. That's good. So you know how that knowledge is also helping you to navigate this, because you have the concept in your head. So when you face situations that are a bit different to you, go, oh, maybe this is because, you know, I come from a collectivist background. So that's fantastic to have that self-awareness and that knowledge of different cultures. So again, more skills added to the list. I would say to you about going back home, don't worry about that yet. Don't worry about that yet. Worry about here. Okay, here is your challenge at the moment. Make sure you make the most out of this, and worry about home when you go back home. But make sure when you go back home that you have someone who can help you debrief once you're there, right? Make sure that you find a group, or, you know, I don't know, a university or anywhere, someone that can help you, you know, process everything you went through, because, you know, now you're missing someone to talk to, right? Someone who can just, you can go into anyone's house and just eat there, right? But when you go home, you might be missing your personal space. You might be missing things that now here you don't even think about, right? So it's gonna be the other way around. So find someone to have these conversations with, and, you know, and from a constructive perspective, you know, that's very important for one of you. Like, not assuming and suspending judgment. You know, no one culture is better than the other. So it's important when you debrief your experiences that you think about what you can get out of all of them. All of them have good things, right? So what did you gain with it? What did you learn going through it? That's what you should focus on to make the most out of it.
Maria, can I ask, are you an international student with a university, like was it by yourself? Or did you come with like to like study a unit, like a semester, or was it you came by yourself and then you're sort of going back?
So I'm really lucky to be on a scholarship to study commerce for 3 years at University of Melbourne, and that scholarship also pays for the international house. So I have a community around me that's just international students from all around the world. I think actually the rate is 60% international students and 40% domestic at my college. So I'm getting the best of both worlds, really, interacting with people who I can be familiar with, and also learning about their background and interacting with domestic students. I know my scholarship, it's specifically for an Indonesian student, and the last Indonesian student to get it, I don't know them, I'm not sure what their background is, but they actually like lasted one semester and asked to go home. So the integration would have been really different, but I think I can attribute that to the fact that I went to an international school. I grew up talking with a lot of expat families, and there was no language barrier. And also that student went to like a domestic college, and then they changed the requirements and sent me to an international college just to help with the integration and the community aspect of things. So yeah, to answer your question, it's a 3-year degree, and I'll be here for the whole 3 years.
Yeah, because like the reason I was interested was because like what Marcela was talking about, like I guess when you return and just sort of trying to understand that, like what you were saying, like there might be a reverse culture shock. Like if it's part of a university, or if they're like communities that you're going back to, I guess like I don't want to always go back to this sort of project that we did last year, but one of like the things that a lot of international students were saying was that when you come back, like to facilitate that by yourself, that conversation, the debriefers can be difficult. Like if there's not really an outlet, if it's through university, and coming back to your own country and debriefing that with other students who went to other countries or had similar experiences is like a really, it can be like a comfortable sort of way to express and like debrief with people, so that like it helps with the reverse culture shock that you can have. I know I didn't, like when I came back, I didn't really have that. And it was scary a little bit, like, but I know like I found my feet and I could speak to some people who had a little bit of a similar experience. But yeah, maybe if, like if there's no outlet through university or things like that to, I know Marcela was saying like, don't worry about when you're going back, but to think about like if there are other people who had those sort of experiences, to know that when you come back, you have some sort of group that you can meet up with, or like just go out for dinner and like talk about, oh, we did this and this and this, and it's like a good outlet, because like they really get it and like they understand like what you went through, as opposed to like other people who are supportive of you and sympathetic, but they didn't necessarily go through similar experiences, I guess. And it's harder to relate to them and to like, to say like, oh, what about this experience? And someone goes, oh, well, I had a very similar experience. It's like a really nice, empathetic way to connect, I guess.
That's actually so true, Marcela and Eddie. You both give good points that like the integration of the experience is a whole nother thing, and it's important to reflect. And I think we've brought up reflection a lot. Like there's a need for it, being an international student or going abroad as a domestic student to an Asian country or anywhere else in the world, to just like really think about what you went through and see how you developed as a person. It can be really valuable to do that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Fraser, did you have anything to add before we move on?
Yeah, I think just one of the challenges that I found difficult to overcome was, I guess the classic one, just the language barrier. And it wasn't sort of that I didn't feel like I was able to communicate with people at a shop or something, or order things that I wanted or ask for directions. So that obviously was something that was difficult at first. But I was studying an English course, or well, the course was taught in English, because I figured that studying law after doing Thai for a month probably wasn't going to work too well if I was doing it in Thai. And so, yes, the course was delivered in English, which meant that students would talk English in the class. But students outside of class would tend to just revert to their normal groups of friends naturally, and speak in Thai, which was quite difficult at first because my level of Thai was very limited. So it sort of felt a little bit as if when I would join in conversations, I was kind of like a little bit of a burden that people were kind of humoring by sort of engaging with. That ended up being tempered a bit because I made some good friends with a group of students who, some were Thai, but a couple were international students who'd been studying there for several years, and their Thai was still developing like mine. So that helped create a bit of a middle ground where we could speak Thai sometimes and speak English other times without it seeming like one person was just sort of tagging along. But I feel that that's an experience that other students I've spoken to have faced, because there's sort of a middle period that you're in where you're learning the language and you're wanting to get involved and you're wanting to interact, but you're also not necessarily able to keep up all the time. And just balancing that interesting social dynamic is something that I think can be quite challenging sometimes.
And stressful, right? Stressful.
Yeah.
Because you're there like kind of smiling, trying to be nice, trying to be friends, but not understanding a word and a bit uncomfortable, right? So, and that's very common in international students as well, you know, having some, you know, issues to sleep or to eat properly, because there is a lot of stress, you know, your whole body is involved in this experience. It's not just your mind. So of course it's stressful and it's challenging. And I think what you found is a good solution. You need to kind of balance the challenge, the level of challenge and the level of support, right? So it's good to put yourself in that little group and feel uncomfortable and awkward and bear with it, but then go to the other little group where you can breathe, right? And recover and get some energy to go back to the uncomfortable one. So that's very important, to not fall in the trap of just staying with a comfortable one or the familiar one. That's a trap, right? And it's an easy one to fall in when you're feeling stressed. But it's important that you keep pushing yourself back to the learning zone, right?
Yeah, and you could definitely see both extremes. Like there were some exchange students. I was actually the only exchange student in the law faculty, but there were other exchange students that I knew from other faculties, and some just were not particularly invested in pushing themselves outside of their comfort zone. And yeah, you could see that their engagement was, I mean, although they certainly had a good time and everyone is entitled to their own sort of view of things, I feel like their understanding of Thai culture and their relationships with Thai students suffered as a result of that attitude.
And their personal growth is likely to have not been maximised. You know, if you stay in your comfort zone, even though you're probably already out of your comfort zone studying in Thailand, if you don't, you know, push that little bit, you know, through to that little bit of a more painful space, you really don't maximise the learning. So you don't have to do it 24/7, but to, as Marcela said, to go in and out of that, you know, to really try and extend yourself, you'll definitely reap the benefits long term. Good for the resilience, I'm sure.
Fantastic. All right, for the last part of our session, we're going to do a fun exercise that is going to help you with your intercultural understanding, and as well for anyone watching at home, they can participate in this, they can pause along the way and implement it into their own life and experiences. So let's go. I'll hand over to you, Marcela. You've got the screen.
Yes, okay. So it's so good that actually you gave us the segue into this, talking about not assuming and suspending judgment, basically, right? Some of you may have done this exercise. I'm not sure. If you have, play along. If you haven't, let's enjoy it. We're going to introduce this tool called DIVE. I'm not going to tell you what DIVE stands for yet, but I will do it after. But it's if you can only have one tool or one strategy to navigate cultural differences, I would say DIVE is the one. It's a very well-known exercise that's been around for a long time, but it's also super, super useful. So I want you to tell me, what can you tell me about this photo? So, and just unmute yourself and share, easier than chatting, so people at home can listen to it. So what can you tell me? Whatever comes to your mind, first things that comes to your mind, come on.
I think this is a metaphor for something deeper. It's when the car and those people seemingly do not look at first glance as if they fit in with the surroundings. I don't know, I feel as if when an international student is abroad, it's as if you're in your own prism world and you see things through a different lens. And it's like, it looks like them driving in some sort of convertible does not fit with the distraction around them. It sort of seems like they're a little bit out of place. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Good stuff. Yeah. What else? Tell me more. What about the others?
For me, when I see this photo, I feel like there is distinction, you know, the gap between the rich and the poor, just like the background picture. People are suffering, like you can look at the structure, it's being damaged, and the way that people dress is not very fancy, while those in the car, you know, they try the convertible and wear sunglasses, and the way that they dress it look very fancy. So it's like the gap between the rich and the poor.
Good. Fraser, Maria?
I think just maybe being a bit disconnected from what's going on around you, like you're in your own little world while something significant is happening right next to you, but you're not aware of it.
Okay, good. Maria?
Yeah, I agree with everyone's points. Definitely the word that came into my mind was inequality, and lack of understanding, probably a lack of empathy, by judging by the smiles on some faces in the car, a lack of understanding for other people's, I guess, circumstances.
Yeah. So what do you think is happening here? What are these people doing?
I really hope they didn't drive past there on purpose to like take photos or anything, because yeah, that was.
So you hope they're not just taking photos. Yeah. What about the others? What do you think is happening?
It's just like those who are in the convertible, they don't care about others, you see, while you can see the people at the background, they are staring at them in the car, look like, wow, they are very fancy driving the convertible, something like that. But for those in the car, they don't even look back at the people on the street, you know, they just, you know, play it cool. And let's just say they don't care anything about those people at the background at all.
Good. Yeah. What about the others?
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here.
Go for it, Eddie.
Well, who's to say, how can we assume that, yes, at first glance, it looks like there's inequality and looks like they're in the convertible destruction around, but who's to say they're not the ones that are picking people up and being the transporter? And it happened to be a glimpse when they were taking a photo, but maybe they live there. Maybe they just happen to have a car. Maybe it's someone else's car. Maybe there could be so many other things. It might not be that, you know, they look as if they're more wealthy and they're taking pictures and roaming around.
Yeah.
Maybe they're finding someone. Maybe they're getting an ambulance. Maybe it could be anything.
Yeah, maybe. Good stuff. Fraser, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'd sort of agree with that. It's maybe easy to make a judgment off one picture, but maybe there is more to the situation.
Fantastic. Good stuff. So I think we should move on because you gave us a lot of maybes. That's fantastic. So yes, Nick.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, after hearing them, because I think that I used to say something like this where you just, you know, crop a particular picture so that we tend to, you know, misjudge the situation. But if we have like a bigger picture where we can see everything, so we can have, you know, we can make a better judgment. And yeah. So good. I'm not sure whether it's just the whole picture or just a part of a picture that you are showing us.
It is the whole picture, but a whole picture of something, of a part of a story, right? So it's not zooming in, but let's see. So we're going to talk about dive because we think diving is what we need to do in culture, right? You just need to put your suit on and go under cold waters to discover what the world looks like in that culture. So dive, the D stands for describe. Describe what I see. And what I see needs to be the same everyone else sees. Because if someone else is not seeing that, it's not a description, right? So what would be a description in this photo? I don't think you gave me any, to be honest. If I look at the list, what would be a description? The car is red. That's a description, right? What else is a description? There is people.
We probably got one description. It's convertible.
Convertible, yes, it's a convertible car. Exactly, good. But then the I stands for what I think I see. And that's what you gave us a lot of, right? You thought you saw the gap between the rich and the poor, that you saw a metaphor, that you saw people disconnected from inequality, that you saw people not looking at the people suffering, right? That's all interpretations, right?
Expensive sunglasses and clothes.
Yes, taking
People-
photos on the phone. We don't know if she's taking photos on the phone or if she's trying to get the signal. That maybe you're too young for that, but try to find the signal on your phone. We don't know. And some of you said they're smiling. I don't see anyone smiling. Maybe the girl on the phone looks like she might be smiling, right? But we're not sure. So we think that's what we see, right? And this where it can be as many maybes as you want. The maybes are endless, right? Of the thing that could happen. The next thing is the V. After we do all the maybes, what we need to do is what I see, what I think it is. So we need to verify. We need to go and ask someone. I don't know, Google is not a reliable source. You need to find usually a cultural informant, someone who lives there or who knows about it. In this case, we are the only ones who know about the photo. We'll tell you in a minute.
We think we are.
Oh, maybe the others know this photo. That's true, Fran. Good point. That was a good interpretation on my side, right? Caught. And then finally, the E is for evaluate. It's how I feel about what I think I see. It's the judgment part. And you said it a few times, I feel like they're not looking. I feel like they don't care. I feel like, they don't care about the people suffering.
Yeah,
So
Maria, I hope what they're not doing is this, right? So what you're thinking is, I think it might be this. I just hope it's not, right?
Exactly.
So it's kind of a judgment.
Yeah, because I don't want to believe that these people don't care. So you say, I hope this is not what's happening because I will be upset about it, right? And that's okay. That's what happens to us all the time. So evaluating or judging is human nature. When we see something that we don't know what it is, we tend to fill it in with our past experiences, our values, our thoughts, right? So when you see a photo of a rich car against some rubble, you think, oh my God, is this what I think it is? Like if it is people doing tourism out of disaster or people suffering, that's horrible, right? And that's a judgment, that's okay. But what we need to do, so that's why I was asking you what were the challenges before. Every day, all of us, we face situations where we think, oh, that's odd, that's weird, oh, that was awkward, oh, weird people, right? When we catch ourselves doing that, that's when we need to take a step back.
Or so rude or not kind.
Not friendly.
Kind people in a certain place, and so we're actually judged based on, there's lots of research around the neuroscience of this. We're kind of looking for patterns. We're looking to see something that looks remotely familiar, and then when it does, we're attributing that meaning to the new situation.
Yeah. So this is very important. That's what Eddie did, was really interesting, because he went, okay, this is going the negative path, right? I'm going to try something different. That's really good. So once you've described what's happening and you start coming up with options, interpretations, if you thought of 5 negative things, push yourself to think of 5 positives, because that's really going to expand your capacity to see different perspectives. It's going to develop your empathy and your ability to suspend judgment. So every time you find yourself judging, take a step back, describe first, be objective on what you are seeing, and then come up with alternatives and make sure you push yourself. If you're thinking negative, think positive.
Of course, it'll slow down the process and slow down the likelihood of judgment. You may still go back to that original thought and it might be correct, but it's going to mean that you won't just react immediately in a way that could be inappropriate.
So this was some examples that I thought you would say, but you went well beyond what I thought you would say. So good job.
Some of the things we've heard before.
Yes. Yeah. And yes, so.
And if I may also even add, like, especially if you're from a, like what Maria was saying, if you're going from a collectivist society to individualistic society, and you come with all those perceptions and the way of thinking, to take a step back and realize, well, which culture am I in now, and is it my lens, or is it that's what I was thinking, like, because I was thinking, like, when you go to a different country, you have your own lens, but there's the lens of everyone else, and you're in a different culture as well. It's one to think about.
Fantastic,
Exactly.
right? The default mode is your own lenses. So you actually need to change them, right? So and that takes effort. So fantastic. So are we telling them what the photo is from?
Do you think? Yeah. Yeah. So this image or the image was the press photo of the year a few years back. And the site is a bomb site in Lebanon. So it's a genuine site. When I first saw this image, I thought it was like a billboard or something behind the image. It just seemed so disconnected. And the young people in the car are looking at their home. So their home was one of the sites that had been bombed, and they'd evacuated the village. And they were lucky to find a friend who had a car that was willing to take them back into the village to see what had happened to their home. So don't feel
Maria
bad.
is in shock. She's like, yeah.
So when this was first released as the press photo of the year, and it was a very kind of lucky shot. This guy had been filming in this place for, you know, all day, and this just had happened as he was packing up. There was a lot of kind of criticism in the press, because they said, how can you take this photo of disaster tourism? You know, you're taking a photo of these privileged young people, you know, who are kind of in some way benefiting from the misery of others. Clearly, they were evaluating, right? Their interpretations were incorrect. So when you know that, you look at this image quite differently. And we can use this in all kinds of things that we see in everyday life. It can be a scenario that we're experienced, a friend that said something to us that we're not really sure that that's what they meant, an image that we're seeing, you know, in the street. There's just so many things that you can use to use Dive for, to slow down that process and suspend our judgment so we get a better interpretation. What did you think of that as a process? Yeah.
It's crazy in hindsight just how quick we are to jump to conclusions from our own implicit biases as well. They act as a certain cloud, and just as well as stereotypes and all these things that we learn almost subconsciously that distort our own perception of the world. Like, they were taking photos, but not of of the disaster tourism, which is something that I thought, because I know I like this happens a lot at home. It's like people, yeah, something will happen. People have a lot of agricultural jobs in Bali, and like tourists will go and take a photo there, and that makes me really upset. So like immediately I was just like, I just hope this isn't the same thing, but this is the complete opposite.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. That was a really good exercise, and I hope you all got a lot out of it. I think we should wrap up here. It's been a really great session with you all. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Fran and Marcela, for joining us and educating us all and getting us thinking a little bit differently, and especially to our panelists as well for sharing your experiences and stepping out there and being willing to learn and grow yourselves. So we really appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sophia, and thank you, everyone. Lovely to meet
Thank
you
you,
all.
everyone.